Hey YouTube, this is Nashtaters. Welcome back to another episode of Friday Free Thinking. So, in this episode, I would like to talk about, yes, you guys probably already guessed it, the worst and the best of 2020. Now, this could be units, vision cards, experts, equipment, etc., etc. And we're going to go ahead and show you guys my personal opinions on the worst and the best. We had good times. I think the video game world overall was drastically affected. Esports, a lot of them were shut down and forced to be played online. A lot of the contents of different video games have been varied or delayed. And in fact, there probably are a lot of games that had their servers shut down because, well, obviously they couldn't do any work on the games or maintenance or whatever. But I think this also led to perhaps a little boom in terms of YouTube. And there's perhaps boom in certain things in other departments of the world in terms of hobbies and whatever. And of course, overall, globally, a lot of things have been drastically affected. I think going forward in 2021, I already did my wish list and hopefully a lot of those things can come to fruition. But let's just go ahead and finally walk away from 2020 after today's video. I'm gonna go ahead and start off with units. And I think there's gonna be criteria here. Obviously, I want to judge these units based on the idea of 1, are they going to be fun to play with? 2, how drastically do they affect your account? 3, perhaps the design of the unit, whether it be art or overall usefulness / mechanics to the game, right? And then of course, lastly, how good are they in terms of investment? And what I mean by that is, generally speaking, most units in this game probably only last a few months in terms of investment. A lot of times we build units for just their trust masters. Other times we're perhaps building them for something specific, like a specific purpose. And I think all those together are going to be my criteria. I'm not going to use any point system or grading system. I simply went on to my personal Discord, which my guildies are there when they allow me to have my own channel, to welcoming the people from the community to come in and have discussions and have some fun. And of course, I actually joined another Discord where these folks have been kind enough to give me their channel dedicated for people to do the exact same thing on their channel that I'm doing on my guild's channel, which is people can come in and discuss things with me, or they can discuss things with their folks on that Discord. I will have the link in the description below. Check it out. Now currently I have 2 channels running on 2 Discords, so there should be no excuses of people coming in, doing shout outs, or giving suggestions for ideas for future videos. Alright, all that stuff aside, let's go ahead and talk about these units here. Now I'm going to go ahead and begin with the worst. I think I did a sort of a pseudo survey because I don't have access to the tools on YouTube to kind of do a survey with you guys. So I do ask that if you're new to the channel or you've been watching my content and you've just been watching and not subscribing, please subscribe. We're really trying to hit 1,000. It'll give me access to one of the most important features in my opinion, which is the community board, which means I can actually list anything and everything at instant speed without having to create a video to essentially communicate with you guys. So let's go ahead and go with that. All right, so I think a lot of folks have been giving me some ideas what they think the worst unit is. Now personally, I have not played with every unit. It's impossible. And I have not built every unit. That's also impossible. But I realized, like I said before, there are going to be units in this game that you're most likely building just for their trust masters. Or you're actually building to really do something specific or purposeful on your account. For example, let's talk about Eldyra for a quick second here. That's not Eldyra. Eldyra is probably considered one of the better units in this game for her powerful, fast killing speed. Therefore, she's classified as a really good farmer for multiplayer and for general purposes. She can actually be pretty viable in terms of arena as well, and sometimes even guild wars. Not so much perhaps in PvP, or match play as they call it. So for the sake of this purpose of this video, I'm going to make sure that I break down in the idea of whether they're good in guild wars, or arena, or match play, because those are all completely different things. And the other criteria, lastly, is usually speaking, they have to be at least MR quality or higher, because the SRs, the Rs, and even, of course, the lonely normal one, generally speaking, I've come to the consensus, and I think this is a fair assessment, that they're usually designed for PvE play. Those are for people who really do not have enough resources to build lots of URs, therefore they need to start relying on lower rarity units. Sometimes they can do okay in arena, but most likely they just will not be able to match up over the long span of the game, because as the game progresses, we're going to have more powerful URs, more powerful equipment, and more powerful vision cards. That all being said, sometimes having a lower rarity unit can be very good in specific encounters, namely PvE encounters. Now, we have seen people trying to take and make the best out of these units who are lower rarity to try to bring to an arena and things like that. We simply just don't see enough of them in terms of arena ladder climb and Guild Wars defense. But that all being said, key units such as Phoebe and of course Shell, if I have her here somewhere, I don't have Shell on this account, but units like those are going to be key units in actually match play, because they offer something specific, a specific toolkit that allows people to home in on a specific strategy in match play. So that all being said, I would not actually rate any of the lower rarities. I'm only going to go with MRs or higher in terms of worst and best, for simplicity's sake, also because, well, the grand scope of the game is a lot bigger than simply match play, even though a lot of people consider match play to be the true endgame. That is a topic of conversation all in its own. So, drum roll please, what is the worst unit in my opinion? And that is going to be, I'm looking at Earth, I'm looking at Mr. Durando himself. So, Mr. Doritos, first off, is a very poorly designed unit in terms of looks. As I mentioned before in my stream, I think he should be much bigger, maybe twice the size of the other characters. So here you are. Look at how small he is. Okay, look at how small he is. And I don't want to finish this battle, but just looking at how tiny he is, to me, suggests that he should have been a lot bigger. Look at that. He's just a tiny guy. He's just a little tiny guy, right? Just a tiny guy. So, I think he's definitely the worst unit. And that shows it right there. Game over. Let's take a look at his Trustmaster though, because let's just go ahead and confirm the idea that you guys also perhaps agree with the fact that he's perhaps the worst. Now, mechanically, he really doesn't bring much. He's a Viking, and we already have a Viking in this job that does an extremely good job. His sub-jobs are going to be Monk and Gunner, which does offer a little bit of range, but, well, Slaughter Axe literally does nothing. Blind is not really considered a very good debuff, right? Yes, it can be good, but most of the time it's not very good in terms of relying on it to change the paddle, okay? And he doesn't have many skills in this game that offers anything new. And the question really would be, why would I build this unit? And the answer will be, there is absolutely no reason to. Now, I know Mashidin actually featured him in Arena, and I think he probably did well, but that's probably because he has some of the best cards, equipment, etc. possible. Now, if you guys have that, and you have the resource to build them, and you want to prove me wrong, please do so. Maybe one day we'll get a UR version that is literally twice the size of other units, looks really vicious, have a souped up battle axe of some kind, and have crazy skills. Then yes, maybe I would say he'd even be consideration for one of the best units. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the best units. For me, I decided I'm going to pick two. And the reason being is because they're just so good. And there are so many good units in this game that maybe, just maybe, I should not do a best unit. But I'm going to do it for the sake of this purpose. And if you guys disagree or agree, well, that's, again, a new topic for a different day. So, I decided that there's actually a tie. And these two units are going to be... Pause moment for dramatic effect. Augureus and Halloween Liga. Now, obviously, I think most people will pick Augureus as the best unit in the game currently in 2020. And I think the reason are many. One, she's from the Final Fantasy Tactics world, so the design already is exceptional, right? Two, she has her own job, and she's very tanky, so people use her for a tank. She has lots of debuff abilities, and ultimately she does her job. She's fast, she moves into combat right away, she starts wreaking havoc. She is good in PvE content, like challenges. She's good in PvP content, so namely Arena and Guild Wars, namely Guild Wars Defense. And in terms of even match play, she can be designed to counter some of the meta key team builds to be as successful as possible. So essentially, she covers everything in the game in terms of content. So obviously, she's definitely one of the most useful units in the game that you can invest in. She is somewhat game-changing as well because she can actually help you conquer many of the brutal challenges. And of course, she makes short work of most your normal farming routine because she does have a lot of AoE. Although she is not quite as good as some of the other farmers such as Eldyra. But nevertheless, she can farm, although you shouldn't be relying on her to farm. But even if she dominated 95% of the content in this game, in my opinion, she's definitely one of the best units you can actually invest in. And being ice actually helps her quite a bit because currently ice is one of the better elements in my honest opinion. So now I chose Little Lita not because I have her or because she's cute, although those definitely keyed into the calculations, pun intended here, is the fact that, well, she's just a really good unit. She's really good and fast at farming. She's really good on defenses because if you keep her in the background as a long distance healer, her heals are instant, therefore making her one of the best supporting units in the game. Some people are arguing that she's actually currently the best healer in the game. On top of it, she is wind, so she definitely can deal with some of the most obnoxious units in this game, such as Keto Faye and of course Halloween Ryu, right? And of course, she can be used in arena play, she can be used in Guild Wars, perhaps not so much in match play, but I cannot dive further into that because I simply do not have enough experience in match play to give you that full suggestion. But for terms of farming, any PvE content, whether it be brutal difficulty or the tower or anything of that nature, raids, whatever, you can take her and become very successful with her. So in my opinion, she fits all the bill in terms of investing, design, gameplay, what she brings to your account. There's not a whole lot of things to do in terms of equipment, whether or not what's best and what's worst, because this game does a very exceptional job in figuring out and deciding what items are going to be good for specific scenario. Just like vision cards. But if I was to actually pick a vision card that I consider to be the best and most impactful in your account, will have to probably be Odin. Odin's very good because it obviously gives you Man-Eater on an individual basis and unit attack resistance up, meaning no matter what damage they do, you're going to be decreasing it by 20%. This can be taken almost anywhere in the entire game. One of the most flexible cards, and I think anytime people talk about defense, it's always going to be the card perhaps you can go to and safely rely on. Given the fact that there are many units that are human in this game in terms of PvE, having a Man-Eater does not hurt at all. And on top of it, obviously, without a doubt, all PvP content involves other human players and human units. Therefore, until we get more animals in this game involved, this is still, in my opinion, considered to be the best card. Now, runner-ups will be considered anything that gives you agility to your entire team, whether it be Scion or the little birdie, right? The little birdie that we got, the Chocobo, the yellow one. Those are going to be, in my opinion, the better ones. All these other cards, no matter how powerful the people rate them, a lot of them are niche things, right? For example, slash resistance or extra slash. You're very honed in on specific units in the game and you're ignoring tons of others. So personally, I don't want to rate them, and I don't think there's anything worse because generally speaking, the normals and the rares are the ones that most people can max, probably for the beginning of the game when they're having issues with some of their harder content. But with so many free summons, free things in this game, most of us probably will most likely be ignoring the rares and the normals, unless of course the game buffs them. In terms of SRs, they're generally speaking more niche, more designed for specific targeting, just as perhaps some of the MRs, which are essentially just a little bit worse version of the UR counterparts. So there's absolutely no reason to rate anyone being the worst. Now, lastly but not least, of course, espers. Now, espers obviously are like essentially partners that you bring to combat, and there are a lot of good ones. I think too many to name, to be honest. And of course, I don't really think there's any worse ones. The only reason someone may say they're the worst is because their percentages simply do not match the other ones. For example, if you're picking Chocobo, for example, let's say he gives you a missile attack of 25%, and a UR counterpart gives you 30%. You can clearly argue and say that this one is worse, but the thing is, the grid system somewhat nullifies that concept because of the fact that you have so many options to pick out of these little grids, and since each individual espers offer something completely different, the combinations are almost endless. And one can argue that you can build them all safely and have no regrets. But the thing is, you can't, because the resources are fairly limited until the game decides to be so generous with us that you can literally max all of your espers. And going forward in the future, they're going to be continuously pumping these out because they want people to spend more money. But again, if I was to truly narrow one, my personal favorite, I would definitely have to go with Diablo, because Diablo is very synergistic. You match that with your casters, and when you summon him, it actually does really good damage. So on top of it, it boosts the magical attack damage of your caster, and I think it also gives you really high speed. So personally, I think Diablos and perhaps Odin are going to be the two best vision cards. Now, what do you guys think? Are you guys saying, Nash, you're full of crap, you don't know what you're talking about? Please leave in the comment section below. Or maybe you have your own personal favorites, or, of course, worst. But since it's my video, my channel, I get to do whatever I want based on my own criteria. And that's not trying to be pretentious or being mean, but that's just the truth. End of the day, it's just my opinion. So that's all the time for this episode of Friday Free Thinking. Until next time, make sure you take care of yourself, all your loved ones, Nashtaters and his family out here. Have a great weekend, and see you in tonight's stream. Peace.